Noise Barbershop, located 3 blocks west of North Campus, is excited to support this broadcast of WNUR Sports. Thanks to the patronage of Northwestern students and faculty, Noise Barbershop is celebrating 106 years in Evanston. They offer haircuts with today's styles and old-school service that hasn't changed in decades. Noise Barbershop takes appointments for your convenience at noisebarbershop.com, or you can call 847-866-6565. Noise Barbershop is a proud underwriter of WNUR Sports.
Cats are going 24-0 in Big Ten play.
Excited to see maybe an offensive explosion this weekend.
This Northwestern team is really, really fun to watch.
With a new episode every week, we have the best coverage of Northwestern football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball. Come for the analysis, stay for the banter. It's WNUR Sports Podcasts.
With the game on the line, one shot, who would you rather have taking it?
Sports Voice?
Or Curry?
Fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, you better hit it. I want
Sports Voice. It's a new era for Sports Voice, this time with your hosts Raghav Khosla and Ethan Siegel. Want electric sports talk? We got you covered. Want to have the best Sunday night every Sunday night? We most definitely have got you covered. Tune in every Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. on WNUR 89.3 FM for Sports Voice, Northwestern's premier sports talk show.
Are you active on social media? Find WNUR Sports on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at WNUR Sports to keep up to date on everything Northwestern. And you can check out our website at WNURsports.com, where you can listen to live broadcasts and gain access to coverage and commentary on Chicago's Big Ten team. Click Schedule on the menu bar for a complete calendar of upcoming broadcasts.
Hey, Pearson.
Hey, Calvin.
Pearson, did you know that WNURsports.com does more than just article writing?
It does? Please tell me more.
WNURsports.com also has a radio station.
Man, it's almost like people are listening to it right now.
That's right. And on Sundays from 7 to 9 p.m., you can tune in to WNUR Sports to hear our station members give you 3 electrifying shows right here on the Sports Block.
Only on 89.3.
Are you active on social media? Find WNUR Sports on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at WNUR Sports to keep up to date on everything Northwestern. And you can check out our website at WNURsports.com, where you can listen to live broadcasts and gain access to coverage and commentary on Chicago's Big Ten team. Click Schedule on the menu bar for a complete calendar of upcoming broadcasts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We had technical difficulties because I was stressing over this, but we're excited to be on YouTube for the first time with HerTake, right, Chelsea?
Yes, we're very, very excited, and we're joined in the OACR by lovely Matt, who's been here before, and first-timer Brendan.
Yay! Another upperclassman. We now have 2, Yan and now Brendan. So thank you so much for coming on, you guys. Per tradition, we're gonna start with our fun little game, fact or fiction. So Chelsea, if you wanna start off.
All right, and for Brendan, who has not been here before, it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, I'm gonna say a fact, and you tell me if you think it's fact or fiction. So first off, NFL referees also receive Super Bowl rings, although they aren't as large or impressive as the actual players. Fact or fiction?
You go first.
I'm gonna go with fact. That seems fair. I've always thought that the NFL treats their officials fairly well, and it's the biggest show of the year, not just in sports, but just in general. And I feel like the officials deserve more than just monetary compensation for that. So I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The amount of calls that Patrick Mahomes gets in the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a fact. So I'm going with Brendan.
That's valid reasoning. And you guys are both correct. It is a fact. which I feel like I would be a little bit upset if it was fiction because I know they have the budget. There's no reason those referees shouldn't get a ring, but it's okay because it is fact. Brielle, do you have one?
I do have one. Let me turn this. Okay. So, fact or fiction? Boxing was illegal in the US until the late 1800s.
Did boxing exist in the 1800s?
Yeah, it did. It was just like even worse than you'd expect.
Is it just like
I'm guessing a lot less rules and a lot more like
No.
then
just
that
like
would just
straight
then that would just be assault.
Yeah, there's this boxing has this thing called the Marquess of Queensberry rules from Great Britain, and those weren't like actually written out until like the late 1850s.
That's so interesting.
So it's fact.
I mean, I could see that, but also like the first iteration of tackle football as we now know it was started playing in the 1890s, and like
You're right.
literally there were so many deaths that in the 1900s
In tackle football?
in tackle football there were so many
Oh,
deaths
I'm not surprised.
that like in 1905 Teddy Roosevelt, who loved football and whose son played football at Harvard, called together all the school presidents, was just like, guys, you got to change the rules because too many people are dying.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm gonna say fiction solely because not making boxing illegal seems exactly like something America would do, especially in the 1800s.
Very good reason. I can honestly follow that.
Yeah.
I know I'm not playing, but that makes sense.
I think it's a fact. I'm gonna go with fact.
It is indeed a fact. That was really good reasoning though, Brendan. I don't know. It was not until the state of New York legalized it in 1896. Was it legal in the US? But shortly after other states followed, and then it developed into what it is today. So, Chelsea, do you have another?
Do we want to
Or-
keep going?
I can do one more.
Okay.
Just for fun. So fact or fiction? There are exactly 120 stitches on a baseball.
I should know this.
That's
That's insane.
I've definitely seen something about this before.
It's not. I think it isn't it like 96. Fiction.
I'm
going with fiction.
gonna say fact just because 120 is a very nice round number.
It is fiction, but it's not 96. It's actually more than that.
Could I take one more guess?
Sure.
Is it over or under 120? Like 126?
It's under 120.
108 maybe?
Yeah. How did you? Okay, let me see your screen.
Yo, I sort of, bro. I promise you.
What are you
There's
ready?
nothing. There's nothing
Watching?
here. There's nothing here about baseballs or
That's so funny.
anything
He's
at all.
watching a baseball game.
I'm watching a baseball game,
Oh,
which
they're
is the
telling him.
closest thing.
They're telling him. Okay, so I guess that can lead us into our first segment.
Yes,
Chelsea.
yes. All right, so a little over a week ago, May 9th, 20-year-old Savvy Lee collapsed on the field during a National Women's Soccer League game between Angel City and the visiting team, the Utah Royals. She was treated on the field for more than 10 minutes before being taken away in an ambulance and treated for a heart abnormality as she underwent surgery Tuesday morning. She was released just yesterday, Northwestern Dillo Day. So basically now the union is calling for any match involving any sort of life-saving intervention to be immediately abandoned. Releasing this statement, these moments demand humanity, sound judgment, and restraint. Any medical emergency that requires the administration of life-saving care should bring play to an end. The match should not have continued. So basically, for Matt, Brendan, what do you guys think? Should the match have continued, which for the people listening, it did continue? Or was this something that, the players should have had to play through?
So I think the immediate parallel we all think about, obviously, is DeMar Hamlin, what happened to him last season on the Bills. And, I just think in situations like that, human life is more important than the sport. And to see your teammate collapse on the field like that, I've seen things like that happen before. One of my coaches has collapsed in the middle of a game, and it's you can't continue after doing that because you're so worried about human life. So I think Damar Hamlin's one parallel, but the other parallel I have to think about, which is I had to go deep in the archives in my mind, but over 100 years ago, there's a pitcher named Ray
100?
Caldwell from who were known at the time as the Cleveland Indians, who was struck by lightning in the
Oh
bottom
my
of the ninth
gosh.
inning and was resuscitated and had to go out and finish the game because he was pitching a complete game. But they made him go out and finish the game and like get the win, which is like, it's absolutely asinine to think about like as a parallel. But like if you really think about it, like it's really not that far fetched from what we have today. Like treating like what conspired in that soccer game as like a modern parallel to like what happened over 100 some years ago, because I think it's absolutely inhumane to force somebody's teammate to say, yeah, you have to go out there and finish the last 16 minutes of a game even though you're worried about your teammate's life. That's just not like it's just not ethical at all.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Matt. I don't think the game should have continued by any stretch of the imagination, especially because, like, you know, it's not as though she collapsed and then got up and was okay. This is, 10 minutes on the field and then she's sent to the hospital. Like, 10 minutes, that's a long time to watch someone get CPR, get resuscitated. And I think that the union's take that any match involving life-saving intervention should be stopped immediately. I think that's good because obviously injuries are a part of sports. There's going to be bad injuries. There's going to be some pretty crazy things that happen on a field. There's going to be some fairly disturbing scenes when athletes get hurt. With that being said, though, if it gets to the point where someone's life is in danger, there's no reason that you should force anyone, especially their teammates and friends, to continue play that day. Like maybe pick the game up the next day or the day after, but asking people to keep playing after that is just a little psychotic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say like the same thing. Like it's not a matter of just like a broken wrist or like a broken foot or something, which is still like bad to happen. But again, it's sports. Things are gonna happen. But like seeing someone being resuscitated on a field for like 10 minutes and then being rushed to a hospital, not only is that traumatic for like the players, but also the fans and just like everyone involved. And most importantly, the person obviously being resuscitated. I definitely don't think it should have continued at all. And Matt, I was also thinking of the Damar Hamlin example, because that like shocked the world and like everyone was praying for him and like, oh my gosh, like we're so glad it got stopped, everything like that. So I don't see why this didn't get the same treatment.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking back to like some of the, worse injuries, like the injuries that you see on TV. They kind of just stick with you because, they're people you don't know, and these aren't like occurrences that you see every day, like someone just like collapsing. And I was thinking back to like years ago when I was watching basketball with like my dad and my brother, and I remember when Gordon Hayward went down for the Celtics and
Yeah,
like fractured
broke
his
his
ankle.
leg.
Yeah, it was his leg, right?
Yeah, and his
I was
leg
like
was like
researching this, and it was like he fractured his ankle. I remember
no.
seeing bone.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that
like
was like rough.
his leg was like facing like his
The
leg
wrong
was
way.
turned like the complete
Yeah.
opposite way.
Yeah.
No, that's one of the things that I was thinking about with this too, is because I remember that game. That was the season opener, and there was so much build up
Yeah.
because the Kyrie Irving Isaiah Thomas trade had just happened.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh my gosh, it's still LeBron and the Cavs, but they traded Kyrie. It's his revenge game. New look Celtics, probably the Cavs' best challengers in the East. And then Hayward, like a minute into the game,
Yeah, I remember that.
and players on both sides, like the Dwayne Wade image has now become a meme because there's nothing that the internet won't get to and try and make a joke out of.
Very true.
Where he's just like on his knees, like clutching his nose, but it's just like, they played through that. They had to play 47 more minutes of basketball that night, and they did, which is crazy. But it's also like, you think about the Kevin Ware injury, which was another just like
I was just about to say that, yeah.
brutal one, and like Louisville kept playing not only that game, but the rest of the tournament and ended up winning it for him. So like, at some points it is just like, yeah, rally around the guy, win it for him, which is similar to like the Bills game the week after the Damar Hamlin incident where they had like 2 kick return touchdowns or whatever it was. And it's just like, yeah, that's a fun rallying around effect. But the difference between something like the Hayward or the Ware injuries versus Hamlin or Savvy King is that Hayward's life was never in danger. Ware's life was never in danger. Obviously, it was devastating. It was horrible to look at. But you knew that was A, survivable, and B, like, there's a chance that this time, next year, 2 years from now, they're going to be back on the field again. Yeah. You didn't know that for DeMar Hamlin or Savvy King. And when it gets to that point where it's no longer just a matter of how do we get this player back to playing shape, and instead it's a matter of, is this person going to survive? Then you simply can't be allowed to let that game continue, in my opinion.
And then, but that draws like a very fine line in the NFL where we see scary concussions multiple times every single season. Like Chris Olave last year was like the biggest example like I can think of that was non-life threatening, but some of these concussions look absolutely brutal.
The Trevor
Especially
Lawrence one was another
the Trevor
one.
Lawrence one, exactly, and Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh my goodness.
In like the lineage of concussions, that's another one. So that we can go down this rabbit hole of like what injuries like do we recognize as bigger than the sport, I feel like that's something that's tough to navigate when you get into you know wrestling, football, boxing, like all these sports, like that these injuries are very very common within, so that's the other side that we haven't really looked at yet. That I just want to throw out there.
I mean, yeah, even in baseball and softball too. Like I was thinking back to the concussion that Miranda Ellis got in the like right after she left Oregon to go to Texas and they were playing Alabama and her catcher, like Alabama laid down a bunt, her catcher grabbed the ball and she was trying to throw it to second for like a to get the lead runner and it just hit Miranda straight in the face and then she immediately dropped down and like I think she ended up getting up after like several minutes, but I think that goes back to your point, Brendan, about how like I don't think her life was ever in danger. Like, definitely would have been out for the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure she was, but gonna be out. Probably will make a recovery return, maybe be on concussion protocol, but it was never a fact of like, oh, she might not be here tomorrow. So I think it is like a hard line to walk. I think obviously in those situations, if someone's life is in danger, definitely stop the game. Like, I don't understand why that would be a question. But then for like those other injuries that are like really bad or really bad concussions, like we have to figure out too, like, what do you do there?
Because there are some that are like, yeah, it's common, but there are other ones that are just absolutely brutal. Like the Kevin Ware injury, it's not life threatening, but how can you play basketball after seeing somebody's bone like stuck out of their skin? How do you? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry,
No
but
thanks.
I'm just saying,
The
like, how do you
demonstration was
do that?
accurate,
Yeah.
like, too accurate.
Just gotta show us. Thank you.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
I
But, like,
remember like back when I was a sophomore in high school, there was like a YouTube compilation. It was just like worst, most brutal sports injuries. I was just like,
And I
oh
eat
yeah,
those,
I
like,
can
for
handle
dinner
it.
and
And
be
now,
like,
well, no, not
Like
over,
about to
not over
sleep.
dinner. It was just like I had
Yo.
just gotten out of school and I was
Only
just like
you,
chilling in the
Kelsey.
student lounge, and I was just like, oh yeah, I can handle this. And then the first one was a Kevin Ware injury, and I was just like,
yeah.
nope, nope, no. Have a good day. I'm done. I am done.
Yeah. It's a difficult, like, we're talking about how it's difficult to, like, decipher which injuries should stop it, a game, which injuries are worth, rallying around. But I think it's a tough line to draw, but I think the line needs to be made because then you have, like, this sort of message where it's like, the players are just players, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After, like, the game ends, like, they log off and just like wait for the next game.
They're like NPCs.
Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, these are people, they have like families, and I'm thinking about King's family. You have to sit there and watch her on the ground, rushed off in an ambulance, and then all her players, all her teammates get right back into it like it was nothing. You know what I mean? Like it was just another minute of the game. It's wild to think about.
And on the subject of family members, that even gets to like playing through injury too, because I was having a discussion with one of my friends about Aaron Gordon today, who had like a grade 2 hamstring sprain, and he was just like, I'm gonna try and play through it, even though that's normally like a multi-week out injury.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of my friends about that, and I was just like I'd be upset if I were his family member, because like, good on you for giving your all to the team, but A, he couldn't really move out on the court, and B, it's also like, at the end of the day, that's his job. That's not who he is. It's a job, and in the same way, like, if like last summer I worked at Walmart, like if I fell off a step ladder or whatever and got a concussion and had to go to the hospital, no one would tell me like, "Hey man, better see you back at work tomorrow, ready to go the next day."
We gotta get back.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be different for athletics. I get that it is, and I get why it is, because that is one of the easier jobs to have in terms of you're just playing a game and you're getting a lot of money to do so. But it is still like you shouldn't need to put your life on the line for a job.
But I also feel like it's different because in athletics, you're not just playing for yourself. You're not just playing to make money. You're playing for your teammates who you spend maybe like 20 out of not like 16 out of 24 hours in the day with, and you're playing for an entire city, and this is a sport that you've been playing all your life. So, there you have such linkage to a sport, hence why you have guys like Freddie Freeman, who before the MLB playoffs last season was in a walking boot on crutches and had a 1% chance to play in the divisional, and then ends up playing and ruining his ankle like throughout the playoffs, but wins the World Series MVP, because he's not just playing for himself, he's playing for the city of LA. So it's much different than like, oh, you have a concussion, yeah, you're out. Take 2 weeks off of work at your like regular desk job or whatever. It's athletics are just much, much bigger than that, because athletics are, an integral part of our lives. Like after our shows, we go home and we watch the playoffs, we watch the WNBA, we watch baseball, we watch football, like this is part of our day-to-day lives, and it's like such a big it's so big in the United States of America. So playing through injuries like much, much bigger than we'd assume. So
Yeah. I think that was a good. Yeah.
I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
That's
No,
wild.
that was
Yeah.
good. I mean, it's good though. We had a lot to say about it, which I
Yeah.
think was all productive. But we're gonna move on to our next wonderful segment about Northwestern lacrosse, which I think both of you are probably pretty excited about. They've done it again, you guys. They've made it to the Final Four. This is their 6th straight Final Four. And also their 16th Final Four in the last 21 seasons. They won 17-12 over Penn. The third period I heard, actually I ran into Brendan after the game and he told me about how the third period was kind of like shaky. And Penn ended up closing their deficit by 5 to put them 3 away from the lead heading into the fourth. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the game. And maybe what do the Cats need to clean up before they head to Foxborough, I think next weekend?
Yep. Yeah, Final Four against Boston College Friday night in Foxborough. I think 5:30 Eastern. Obviously, BC has been a little bit of the boogeyman for this team for the past couple of seasons. First, the comeback win in the national championship game a year ago, and then a pretty dominant win at home or in Evanston pretty early on in the season that broke, I think, a 40-some home winning streak for Northwestern. And I think that in terms of what Northwestern needs to clean up heading to Foxborough, it starts with the offensive sloppiness. Northwestern committed 18 turnovers, 7 in the third quarter, which was a big part of what allowed Penn to claw back in. Penn scored 6 of 7 goals in the game at one point. And a big reason for that was the turnovers. Northwestern was winning the draw. They just weren't doing anything with their offensive possessions. And I think that the key in Foxborough is just going to be don't turn the ball over. As long as you can get enough shots on goal, and Northwestern was able to win the shots battle by 10, which is, that's part of why they won. But, as a team, when you have possession, when you have a draw taker as good as Sam Smith is, when you're one of the top 5 draw control percentage teams in the country, you should be able to control the pace of most games. Northwestern lost control of the pace of this one a little bit in that third quarter because of the turnover. So those have to be cleaned up a lot. And then I think Madison Taylor just needs someone else to play like a great offensive game, because as nice as the offensive sharing the wealth was, aside from Taylor, 4 different players scored multiple goals. You're going to need somebody else to put up like 3 or 4 once you get to a Final Four game. It can't just be a one-woman show, because even against BC last year in the national championship game, we saw a little bit of that where Izzy Skane was having a great day, Taylor was having a great day, and everybody else was just kind of like along for the ride. That can't be how you win a game of lacrosse. You're going to need probably at least 2 players with 4 more goals. Obviously, Taylor's going to get there. The question is, can somebody else?
I honestly agree with you because Maddie Taylor's first 2 games in the NCAA tournament have been outstanding. 10 goals against Michigan and 10 points against Penn. That's not going to happen against BC, you know. So I think Riley Campbell or Nikki Miles might have to step up, and if not, then this is kind of a lot to ask for. But Didi Foster might have to be the second leading scorer. Somebody's going to have to find a way to get to the Boston College defense, which is something that they were able to do in that regular season matchup earlier in the year. But I just, if you're on the Northwestern attack, right, you can't just be along for the ride and let Madison Taylor do her thing, because BC is gonna do what? Do the common sense thing. Double Maddie Taylor. Don't let her score. So it might have to be last game. If we're going back to last game, Emerson Bolig and Taylor both had 3 goals. But Abby Lacasio had one, Riley Campbell had one, and Taylor Lapointe had one. So it can't be a copy paste thing. And then on the defensive side, Jane Hanson's gonna have to step up, and so is Mary Carroll, which is, we know what she can do, but can she be as good as a defensive player as she has been against other teams, against one of, if not the best team in the country right now? So defense is going to have to be big. Going back to what Brendan said about the turnover battle, not only not turning over the ball, but causing turnovers is going to be the key to a Northwestern win.
Yeah, I completely agree with what both of you guys said. I think we have to give Penn credit for coming back the way that they did. I think it's difficult for any team to kind of have like the mental durability to kind of be on the low like this whole time, kind of being beaten, and then when you have a chance to seize it. But I think as someone who is, rooting for the Cats personally, I'm not gonna put a name to the whole thing. Um, but I think it's vital for, yes, like I hate to be that person. It's like, oh, like they did so good, but like that one little moment where they did bad, like I don't want to just focus on that. But if you want to sit here and call Northwestern like a dynasty, and to give them the credit they deserve for being a team that can win the championship so many times, it comes down to the little things, like those little moments where you can't make those mistakes again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also think that this game could come down to, this title run could come down to which version of Delaney Schweitzer is Northwestern going to get, because against Michigan she was excellent, 8 saves, just 7 goals allowed. I thought personally she was the best goalie in that game, which is saying something considering Aaron O'Grady's been the Big Ten goalie of the year 2 years running now. But then against Penn, a little bit more pedestrian, 12 goals allowed, just 3 saves in the second half compared to 7 goals given up. And Northwestern can't really have that from her. Obviously, the first Boston College game was one of her roughest. It was the 3rd most goals she's allowed in a game this season. The other 2 were Johns Hopkins in the Big Ten tournament and North Carolina. But it's like, if she allows more than 12 goals, that probably means Northwestern isn't going to win. And she has the capability to keep these great teams, these teams like Michigan, these teams like Maryland, these teams like, Johns Hopkins to a lesser extent. She has the ability to keep these teams in like the 8, 9, 10 goal range. If she can, then I think Northwestern's got a really good shot.
Yeah, and to that point, Penn only got off 22 shots in the game compared to Northwestern's 32, and the difference was only 5. So you could only tell, like, Delaney Schweitzer just did not have her best game. And there were some goals that, if you were watching the stream, you were kind of like scratching your head at, like, what's she doing between the pipes, Because these are goals that she's very, very capable of. These are shots that she's very, very capable of stopping. So we have to get the best Northwestern has to get the best version of Schweitzer in the Final Four.
Yeah, I totally agree. And unfortunately, we have ran out of time. Let's hope that the Cats pull it off. I think they have a good shot. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt and Brendan. Thank you to my lovely co-host Chelsea, and yay to us for having our first stream on YouTube.
Yes, we're very excited.
Thanks. Shout out to Calvin for helping me set it up. We spent like 3 hours doing it, but yeah, Sports Voice is next. We hope you'll tune in, and we'll see.